Well, welcome back to our study on Ruth, and we're going to be picking up here in the second half of chapter 3. We've come off of this seemingly scandalous setting where Ruth meets Boaz in the middle of the night laying at his feet after he's drank much and his heart was merry, and she makes this bold request for marriage. Prompted by Naomi, of course, because we understand that Naomi's need in this book is for financial security, but also for family security. And Naomi has this plan to take Ruth to the threshing floor of Boaz, where he's sifting out the barley, and has her have this chance encounter. And we understand that in the sovereignty of God and in the Mosaic that He is creating, there are no chance encounters, and each one of these moments has been clearly orchestrated using the messy lives of these individuals to create a beautiful masterpiece, a masterpiece that is considered one of the greatest love stories that has ever been written. And we pick up at the end of that scene where we left off. It was a little bit of a cliffhanger last week where Boaz told her to lie until the morning. And we made mention that lie until the morning, he wanted to protect her in a sense. And he's going to double down on that protection in these verses in chapter 3, verses 14 through 18. And this is what the author records. So she lay at his feet until the morning, but she arose before one could recognize her. And she said, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." Boaz said that. And he said, "Bring the garment that you are wearing and hold it out." So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did you fare, my daughter?" Then she told her all that the man had done for her, saying, "These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, 'You must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law.'" She replied, "Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today." Now, what's incredible about this story of Ruth is, yes, in the first chapter, we have a span of at least a decade, because the author records that Naomi, from the time they went to Moab until she heard that there was food back in Bethlehem, there's a span of about 10 years. And a lot transpired in those 10 years. But once we hit chapter 2 and she heads back to Bethlehem, and we get to the end of the book, we're talking about a very rapid succession of events. Okay, she gets back, Ruth goes and gleans in the field of Boaz. Then that night she's at the threshing floor with him. And then now we pick up in verse 14 where it is literally the very next morning. And we're going to see a couple of things here about the character of Boaz, specifically in the way that he deals with Ruth. Now, last week we discussed and we said that he was a man of integrity because he was willing, because of the character of Ruth and his attraction to that character and who she was, he was willing to redeem her, but his integrity would not let him do that unless the Redeemer closer to her would do it first. And so he's going to again provide for her financially. But as we see at the end of this chapter, Naomi kind of knows that he's going to take care of this matter today. And so what I want to look at is kind of the lessons that we can learn from the character of Boaz and the way that he treats Ruth. You'll notice in the first verse, in verse 14, he says very, very clearly, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." Now, he's trying here to keep propriety about what occurred in the evening that night. And he does not want anybody to know that Ruth has been there in the evening with him because, as we all know, rumors start very quick and spread very fast. So we want to make sure, and he wanted to make sure that nobody was aware that Ruth was there with him that evening, because he knew how important it was to protect her reputation. She was a woman of worthy character, and he needed to make sure that she remained a woman of worthy character. And as men, if we are to look at the example of Boaz, who ultimately is a picture of Christ, it is our responsibility when we encounter people, and we especially encounter women, that we uphold our own integrity by looking to protect their reputation, making sure that we are not speaking ill, making sure that we are not denigrating their character, but respecting them as daughters of God. But not only does he protect her reputation, he also again provides food for her and a financial stability. And there's a little ulterior motive here that we'll get to, but he provides this for her. He's already fed her until she was full the day before at supper time. And he also sent more food back for Naomi that night as well. Then the threshing floor scene happens, and then we're here in the morning, and he tells her, don't let it be known that you are here tonight. And I'm sure that he spread that news to the close confidants to make sure that her reputation was protected. But then he also says, spread out your garment, and let me put 6 measures of barley into it. This is a lot of barley that he's putting into her cloak for her to take back to Naomi. And here's the ulterior motive. When Ruth shows up to Naomi with this much food for them, his intentions and ultimately his answer to her request are going to be very clear, are going to be very plain. And that's why Naomi, at the end of this chapter, she says, wait, my daughter, until the matter is settled, because he will take care of it today. We know that Boaz is a man of action. He's somebody who has built a business and has people working for him, as we've seen in chapter 2. He is a decisive man, and he makes decisions that seemingly fit into that honor and integrity role. And obviously that character is known because Naomi, and I'm sure they had a conversation where Ruth was like, he wants to redeem us, but there's somebody else in front of him. And Naomi says, just wait, because the matter will be resolved today. You can almost see this crescendo kind of building where we get into chapter 4 here next week. We're going to see this build and this story continue to build to this climax moment, because right now, we're on the precipice of everything that's been orchestrated in this story. But it all hinges on one person, this closer redeemer than Boaz. And Naomi doesn't seem worried, because what Naomi, you got to look at it from her perspective, right? We know she has a financial need. We know she has a family need. Boaz has already agreed, but there's somebody in line before him. Naomi's taken care of. If the first guy says yes, great, the land's been redeemed, and it will continue on, the family. But if he doesn't say yes, Boaz is waiting and ready to honor Ruth, take care of Naomi, and carry on this family line through redemption. And what can be seen through the character of Boaz here is the way that God is dealing kindly with Naomi. If you remember back to the last half of chapter 1, when Naomi enters the city of Bethlehem, the women of the town notice her. And they say, is this Naomi? And she goes, no, don't call me Naomi. I'm Mara. I'm bitter, because the Lord has dealt bitterly with me. When I was Naomi, I left full, but I have now come back empty. Well, in this moment, at the end of chapter 3, Naomi's no longer empty. Boaz has provided food for her the evening before, and he's provided food for her the next morning as well. She's no longer empty. And the kindness of God in dealing with Naomi in these messy situations is seen through the character of Boaz. Now, What's important to note is that there's this person, this other character out there that the entire story hinges on. This kind of conflict in the greatest love story is going to be introduced next week in chapter 4, and we're going to see how this mosaic is being beautifully placed together.